the Economic Development Commission,
the duties of the Economic Development Commission,
Industrial Development Board
Industrial Development Board
of the City of Lakeland, Tennessee.
of the City of Lakeland, Tennessee.
Mr. Acton.
Yes, sir.
Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Keith Acton, solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution
solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution
and will obey the laws of the United States
and will obey the laws of the United States,
and the state of Tennessee, that I will, in all respects, observe the provisions of the Charter, observe the provisions of the Charter, and the ordinances of the City of Lakeland, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Economic Development Commission, Industrial Development Board of the City of Lakeland, Tennessee.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome, Ricky. Thank you.
Probably not. Yes, sir.
Good
Here's my bag.
Foundation one copy of the adjournment. Is this our agenda?
Yes.
We'll call the meeting to order. Can we do a roll call, please?
Mr. Atkin?
Here.
Here.
Benbow?
Here.
Mr. Williams? Mr. Rhodes?
Oh, here, sorry.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Purfoy? Chairman Lester?
Here. All right, we have a quorum. First up is the approval of the minutes of the previous meetings. There's three previous meetings. The minutes were distributed earlier. Are there any questions, concerns, or corrections?
Chairman, can we take these collectively or one at a time? I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written for all three of the meetings represented.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor of approving the meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Next up is public discussion. We have one person that signed up for public discussion. Just a quick note about tonight. Given what's been in the news and everything recently, I just want to point out that tonight we will not be discussing a bond, but we are more than happy to hear public comments and and field any comments that y'all have. Lou, I think you're the only one that signed up. If anybody else wants to, please let us know.
I don't know, the counter's gone, or the microphone's gone, but just bear with me. Lou Belton, 9584 Pine Point Drive. I'm a 29-year resident of Lakeland, and I come here tonight to express my concerns with you guys about how quickly the process of funding the high school in Lakeland has occurred. Although I have heard an educational need, I have not heard an educational need. I have heard the desire for local control and the excuse that schools drive economic development. It is my understanding that you as a board have been assigned the task to be an entity of this project. My first question to you is, has this board formed a subcommittee to determine if this is the best financial choice, product, and venue for Lakeland and its residents? Or have you done the research yourselves? Or is this board simply following the recommendations of the mayor, the BOC, and the city attorney? Next thing is do you understand that each of you has a fiduciary responsibility to the city and all of Lakeland residents to perform due diligence regarding financial decisions in these type transactions? And have you been advised of this? Are you aware, in the event of any legal issues with this type transactions, that you have the potential for personal liability based on being a member of this board and your fiduciary responsibility? If you're unable to answer these questions tonight, I look forward to your answers on record at the meeting before your vote Tuesday. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, to those questions, I think they would be best, addressed, when we are considering the bond. But thank you so much, ma'am. Absolutely. Any other public comments? All right. Moving on, reports of officers and committees. The planning report from Tom.
Your packet does include a memo from me. No updates have been happening ever since, so I think the memo speaks for itself. I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Question comments on this report? All right. Good? Oh, all right.
If this is an appropriate time, it probably is to introduce the speaker. Okay, you're already on top of it. Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mr. Guda, thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you don't mind, with you here, I think you might have a little update for us on the Lake District. And again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Awesome job so far. The property's looking better already.
Well, thank you, and we're very excited. As you know, I have 3 items to update you about tonight. The state of the demolition first. The annex building, the 60,000 square foot building, is now level. Just so I understand, the reason there is some concrete chunks left there is because we plan to pulverize everything concrete, masonry, asphalt. There is roughly 35,000 tons of material that will stay on site and will be reborn as road-based material. So we don't have to bring the equivalent of 3,000 truckloads, equals to 8 miles long concrete truck that we will not need to bring in. It's good economics, and it's a sound environmental policy. The material that will be hauled away is something we cannot use, and this is all the steel. This will become our new bridges elsewhere in the area, maybe cars in the area. Whatever you do with recycled steel. Aluminum, of course, we recycle that as well. 85% or more by weight of the old mall is going to be reborn elsewhere. And we're very excited that so much of it is actually staying on site. The original core mall, they are trying desperately to get a demolition permit from MLGW. Being true to their own reputation, they are always cannot even fulfill their own timetable. So if you don't see things happening in the next few weeks, it's because our hands are tied. Honestly, we kind of winged it in the first demolition act that we did by 2 days. We wanted to keep the party on, so we started the demolition 2 days before we got the permit, but that's fine. Being a big building here, we don't want to repeat that. So that is very exciting. In the spirit of the holiday season here, another piece of great news is, and I know everybody was losing sleep in the last over the summer about the looming foreclosure, so to speak. Yesterday, Tremont net funding was paid in full. They're no longer around. They are now in our rear view mirror. Done. So we are super excited, obviously. The third piece of information I'd like to update you is a continuation and hopefully put to rest the concern that came a few months ago when we were updating when we were talking to you about the change in the site plan, what we needed to do, simply reacting to economic reality. One word about that first is that if you have a developer here who will just proceed with what was originally planned and paying no attention to economic changes, he's a developer that will do you a lot of harm. We are not one of those. So I know there was some concern about the economic outcome of those changes. And those changes, you may recall, some of the big boxes that are being closed nationwide or already shuttered, we are not building them. Instead, we're building more quality homes and better everything else. Keeping that in mind, we went back to the drawing board and we did everything from scratch in order to do the financial analysis of what the impact is, of course, with Dexter and others. The economic impact will be presented to you in a minute by Sean, next to me here. And Sean, why don't you go ahead and present that?
You'll review that. Do they have copies?
I will give you the copies of the, yeah. I didn't know there were going to be so many of you. I forgot about it.
It's okay.
No, that's okay.
We'll share.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
In there, it's the page that's go to the Lake District Financial Analysis Overall Comparison, Property Tax and Sales Tax Sheet. And again, a lot of this, from the beginning to as you go through the economic realities, dealing with moving picture, trying to think what the market's going to gain. If you go to the sheet labeled Lake District Financial Analysis, you can see what we have put in 2016 and what we're doing in 2017 and the change. And let's take the project value. Under 2016, what was originally proposed to the IDB was an overall property value of $294. We actually have gone up in property value under the new scenario, up to $326,000. Okay, the sales have on the square foot, we went from $580,000 to $399,540 with a sales tax of $142 versus $177. So we have a little negative change from negative $25,000. Okay, more than should be offset with the thing. Then it was broken out by the change in Lakeland, the change in Shelby County in total. Overall, we're up 1.8% over what we presented in 2016 to our current site plan, which is the bottom number here on the right. It's a 6.5% change for Shelby County and a 3.5%, negative 3.5% change for the city of Lakeland, which in the middle of everything, when you're dealing with $400 million development, is a small number. It's going to change. Values will rise up between now and 2019. Although the market for the houses, the demand is a lot higher than we expected, and so everything's moving. There is going to be changes. We're going to be pretty close, and we're going to keep you updated with what's going on. I'm open to any questions, but we took basically the original site plan and the numbers we were given and took our new site plan and looked at it. We increased the value of the property substantially, so the property tax will be higher. And the sales taxes will be slightly lower. But again, the numbers that I put in for Dexter to estimate sales were very conservative. I do expect them to be higher because the project that you, excuse me, This project, there's nothing to judge what sales will be like, because we don't have any projects like it here in Memphis. I can't use projects in Atlanta or Nashville, because people are going to say, well, we're not Atlanta or Nashville. So all I can do is use with the best numbers we have in Memphis. But when you start putting retail into a mixed-use environment, the sales will go off the charts. Okay, we should do a lot better from the restaurants. There are some exceptions to this. From the 2016, we didn't have any hotel or motel into this thing. We're going to have 2 hotel motels in the project that will eradicate that negative change for Lakeland from what we did in 2016. But we didn't want to put it in 2017 when we didn't have it in 2016. So I'm open to any questions. I just want to kind of keep it simple.
If you did not omit that, what type of projection, what type of additional impact are you projecting in 17 if you add the hotel?
I would have to get Dexter to give that exact number.
Just roughly, we're talking about we're going to at least be where we have.
Oh, you're going to be far exceeding that number. And that, I mean, you have probably 300 hotel rooms in the hotel motel tax, the sales that were generated by the hotels on that part in overall sales. Again, we didn't want to put that in there to skew the numbers. We wanted to, because I always wanted to say that we adjusted the site plan and cut down on some big boxes. But what we're doing is moving to retailers that the big boxes do roughly like 150 to 300 sales. We're moving that big boxes to restaurants and higher end retailers that are more in that 350 to 500 per square foot of sales. Smaller footprints, higher sales, more upscale, that's befitting the city of Lakeland.
As soon as it's at full operation?
That is at full operation. It takes a vacancy.
Yeah, in your experience, does it phase in, what, 50%?
Our plan,
and
again, we're subject to the market. Our plan is to, on the retail portion and the apartment portion, to go vertical at the same time. We want a substantial amount of the residential to go, and the demand's great so far. But the residential, we're not going to build houses till we're going to keep the stock and build on, so it could phase in. So, on that, but it's always going to be that way. But it's going to bring a lot of good residents. People are looking for that high demand for that 0 lot line, empty nester, single parent type homes. I mean, our website's been being blown up by people from all around the city. I even had someone from the city of Germantown yesterday when I was making a talk there, and to the Cry Like office. They wanted Cry Like office in Lakeland. Billy Rogers, who's from Lakeland, but runs the office, but they wanted to hear about it. They had people say, we're ready to come over to Lakeland because it's kind of cheap. So,
is there a ballpark figure on when the revenues might start coming?
I would say late 2019, early 20 to be, that is our time frame for building. Can I talk about the grocery store?
What line?
The grocery store.
Sure, go ahead.
One of the big catalysts for this whole project was, as any project that deals with a retail component, is a supermarket. Okay? We always wanted to envision a very high-end supermarket for this area. If you look at the high-end supermarkets that are chains in the area, you have Whole Foods, you have Fresh Market, you already have a Sprouts. Fresh Market's on the verge of bankruptcy. Whole Foods, they built out and they didn't even open their olive branch store. They subleased it. So they're not doing anything. Earth Fare is looking in the market but pulled back. Publix is not coming to West Tennessee as much as most people like on that part. So we thought we don't want to compromise the project. So what we did is we went out and talked to AWG, which is Associated Wholesale Grocers, and they're the largest wholesale grocers in the United States, and said, give us a couple of operators that we can talk to. And we're going to put in a 35 to 40,000 square foot grocery store. It's going to be named the Stock Market. It's going to be an independent, locally owned grocery store. It's is going to be something that's going to be, you're going to start hearing about it in the next week or so. And as the stuff comes, I think Lakeland is going to be proud. It's going to be your very own that store that's associated with Lakeland and with this development. And that became the catalyst for my other retailers and several part of the thing, is having that grocery store. I can now finalize, we met Tuesday with AWG, kind of finalize that deal with them and all the paperwork to be signed. But we're totally excited about having that grocery store because that remains the catalyst. Every other deal that I have on the bigger deals is keyed off of co-tenancy with the grocery store. So I hate to say I was trying to delay it, and I really wasn't, because I'm a broker, I want to get it done as quickly as possible, but I had to get that grocery store solidified. Now I can finalize the other deals, and we're going to announce them as fast as we can, because we want to build that momentum that we're going on from the demo to the project. But the grocery store, Lakeland's going to be proud of this, and we, as part of doing this, we've branded this grocery store and copyrighted it across the United States. So hopefully maybe it'll be some other high-end, but it will start here in Lakeland. So we're kind of excited about that. The operator that we have used to be the president of Bruno's grocery store in Alabama, and he was came from Cecil's, so which we all know about. But the stock market will be the Lake District market, and it will be very local, and local food purveyors, good-sized grocery store. And it will be a hybrid. It's going to be where you can go get your Honey Nut Cheerios and a 5-pound pound of sugar, but fresh butcher cut meat, fresh seafood, flowers, produce. What they call around the perimeter of the grocery store will be very active. We will incorporate a farmer's market on the weekends that will be sold within conjunction with the grocery store. So, and as we go along, you're going to hear a lot more about it.
Great, thank you. That's a big news.
Yes, so as John already said, we actually own the brand, the stock market now. We had no idea why nobody in this big country of ours did not think about that most obvious name for an upscale supermarket. It was available, so we grabbed it. So here we go. First one in the country, will be right here in Lakeland. Super exciting news. Obviously, on a Saturday morning when the farmers market will take place, which is integrated into the stock market. That's when we're going to have, and I think I mentioned that before, we will actually have weekend kite rapids, part of the lake, a portion of it in the narrow part of the lake, if you recall the excitement. There will be some fast-moving water for certain sections, so our kayakers will be able to show off their skills, and everybody will kind of enjoy it. The last thing I wanted to mention is how excited we really are about your work, about the upcoming high school. Being the largest residential developer in Lakeland, which we have become, with our 345 homes and so many of the other residential elements, it's very exciting that this important element of higher education, so to speak, or it will be higher education because of the quality of high school that we will have here, is coming soon, and that you are in the process of getting that through the system here. It's very important amenity that a project like the Lake District will enjoy, and so many other future residential growth in the area as well. So kudos to you, board, to taking that important leadership. And we are very excited and to see it through, and we hope to beat you to it. So we will start to funnel the newly found tax dollars and property tax and all that good stuff to make it even more successful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Before we leave, any questions?
Thank you so much, sir.
Mr. Chairman, point of personal preference, if you don't mind. Just a reminder to this board, we're convened as the IDB at this time, which means I'm a liaison or advisor from the VOC. You guys are going to make important
decisions. I'll be happy to weigh in any way you'd like for me to, but as when we're convened as the IDB, I really don't speak unless I'm spoken to.
And just for the record, Mr. Purfoy is here. All right, first up, in new business, discussion and possible action on the amendment to restate bylaws of the IDB. Mr. Brown? Thank you.
Yes, sir. So I know we talked through it earlier stage, some of our older IDB members talking about bylaws, federal corporate governance. We went back through the bylaws and just refreshed, so to speak, certain items. This is making sure easy for the board to operate. One being, we added in telephonic communication, telephonic board meetings, just take my phone now. As you'll see in Article 6, 7, 5, where it goes through for participation by phone. So again, a board member can participate by phone. The only sort of caveats to it is you sort of work through the list. We have to have actually quorum present here. Obviously, that board member will have to be able to be heard by all of the board and the public, so to speak. As opposed to voice vote, we have to actually do a roll call, physical roll call vote, for each member gets a chance to vote yes or no. Participation only by board. So again, obviously, it's open meeting up to the public. By your rules, just to try to keep it contained. We have only the board members to be able to participate by phone, not sending. And again, just sort of getting a balancing. Again, just sort of truly just trying to update it. I think this with you guys. The only other thing that we changed to this, again, the notice of meetings.
Can someone be able to vote telephonically?
Yes, you can just write it with people. And with only here, Mr. Johnson, is that a quorum has to be physically present at the meeting. So you can have 7 people on the phone. The only other item that changed in bylaws was notice of the meetings. So to speak, just sort of following what we've been following from our guidelines. We post a notice on our website. It goes out a couple of days in advance. Again, strictly following Tennessee law of doing to the minimum what those requirements are. Just so as the board knows, we get the notices out about a week, a little over a week, or a little less than a week in advance for each board meeting. Again, it's online. We send it to various news and media outlets, and just sort of update from there. Mr. Chairman, I do have a couple of just quick corrections in Article 6, Section 5. The reference to it says Section 4, and each of the subsection, so to speak, I need to be under Section 5. And it's Article 6, Section 6, we reference Section 6, or Article 6 as opposed to Article 7 on the next page. On C. I apologize. I'm trying to get this out to you guys before the Thanksgiving holidays. But again, there's nothing else that we do in the bylaws that want to pretty much send to advertise.
I need to back up just a moment. I think I probably apologize for this. Motion to this to the floor. So apologize.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
I will make it.
Thank you, sir.
We need officially accept the amendments. Will we do that, Kevin?
I think so. As amended, would be the question. Any questions or concerns?
I'll make a motion to accept the bylaws as amended.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Second item. Discussion and possible action on the debt management policy of the IDB.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
back
sure.
real quick. I know we just voted on this.
debate, or we'll ask questions.
No debate, this is more of a question. If I may, on Article 10, if you'll go to page 9 at the top, I just want to clarify, make sure that is written correctly as well, the right identification provided in Article 9. Is that correct, or should that be Article 10?
Top of page 9.
Top of page 9?
That should be part of it. I didn't, sorry about that.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to open this vote back up if possible. I don't know the coffee matter, but seeing the change, I'd like to recognize the change and open this back up for a vote.
Do we need, or
I don't think the vote is here today.
is that just
This is special, so from there.
that's what
It's fine with me as long as
they
it's noted it's correct and fixed. Yep.
Gotcha. Alright. Okay, item number 2, the discussion of possible action on the debt management policy of the IDB. Can I get a motion to bring this to the floor?
I make a motion to bring it to the floor.
Second. Turning back over to
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. As the board knows, we have talked through sort of several items with respect to economic development, just as we've said in the past, our tools in our toolbox, things that are needed. We've adopted a TIF policy, policy procedures and TIF application in and of itself, which is one aspect of the IDB can utilize with respect to bringing business in. At one of our earlier meetings, we talked about pilots at a very high level, and we plan to bring before the board at some point in the future a pilot officer as well. So again, it's another tool that the IDB can utilize with respect to its governance. One other aspect the IDB can do that IDBs across Tennessee are allowed, have the authority to do is issue bonds. And the issues of bonds, there should be certain policy procedures that the board should utilize in connection with the city of Lakeland for that bond issuance. One is a debt management policy. Obviously, at a high level, we want to make sure that we have, competent counsel involved in the transaction, competent underwriters involved in the transaction, financial advisor, just so that as professional services are being provided to this board as a issuer, so to speak, that the board has the resources it needs and the information that it needs to make to enter, if it so chooses to enter into a transaction. This policy is somewhat similar to the policy of the city of Lakeland, just because hand in hand and tandem, to make sure you're aligned from that standpoint. As we talk through the policy itself about potential conflicts of interest, to the extent that obviously we would want advisors on both sides of the table, so to speak. And if that's the case, we will make sure there's disclosure there, that the IDB understands from that standpoint, as well as just administration. And again, this policy, I know there's been talks about other transactions and everything else. I would, as I've said before in the past, get emails to the board members. This policy is something that I would recommend you to have regardless of any other action that's going on from a finance standpoint. Any questions or comments that anyone might have about the policy in and of itself? And again, I think we would, as we deal with the bylaws and everything else, we would be my recommendation that we periodically review the policy to make sure it complies with what we plan to do as a board.
any question? Good job.
If I may, I need just a little bit of clarity on this verbiage here.
Sure.
Page 2, Cal, professionals, the second paragraph. What are we saying?
So, the board would choose that certain items are high professional, in one of my ways, especially for underwriters, the people who actually sell the bonds, is, by law, we can do just go out and say, look, we're gonna enter into a private contract with XYZ firm. Another aspect to do things is to have a bid, where each firm submits a bid for what they think the pricing should be, what their fees should be, and everything else. So if there's a debt transaction where a bid submitted, this is going to the standpoint that we're using electronic, it's being publicly advertised, again, so it's not a standpoint where it's a private aspect of things, where everyone has a chance to actually go through the bid process.
So saying that it's not subject to the disclosure clause, if you will, because it's a publicly bid item, as opposed to something that's a sealed activity. Thank you.
And again, it's really to the standpoint of number where we have flexibility. There's no title transaction.
All right. Any other questions or concerns? All right. Well, yeah. Can we?
I'm sorry, I thought you just said, but you've done those good.
No. Make a motion to accept it.
I make a motion to accept the debt management policy that's in addition to our policies for IDB.
Second. Second. All in favor of accepting the debt management policy, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Passes unanimously. All right. Third item, this is discussion and possible action on compliance and remediation policies of the IDB. Somebody like to make a motion to bring this to the floor?
I'd like to make a motion to bring this to the floor, please.
Second.
Properly on the floor.
Again, in connection with a debt issuance for the IDB, if the debt issuance is a tax exempt transaction, or could be even a tax transaction in certain regards, there are certain requirements by the Internal Revenue Service with respect to audit and compliance with the bond issuance that the IDB as the issuer needs to go through. As you'll see in this policy, the board has certain fiscal responsibilities to monitor and overview the bond issues in and of itself. And obviously we would ask for some type of periodic reports about activity, so to speak, with respect to the bonds, as well as on an annual basis, there's certain aspects the president should go through, or the board should, and the tax president go through, just again, making sure that things that we're in compliance with any applicable law, respect to any applicable law in general, but also respect to the Internal Revenue Service. Especially with respect to a tax exempt bond transaction, where there are certain uses and activities that the bonds can be utilized for. Again, I would say with this type of policy in and of itself, irrespective of any type of other transaction that may be coming from the board in the near future, this is a policy that you should have just in general. In and of itself. I know that Mr. Nagnau, earlier, if we were doing a bond issuance with respect to a TIP transaction, these policies would be implemented at that stage as well. We knew when we approved that transaction and the extensions that we weren't close to financing. That's why these policies were brought before you earlier. But obviously, you know, this is prudence and everything else the board should go through. As well as, I know from a public comment to help with respect to future obligations with respect to that.
Chairman, could I address the VOC liaison directly? Josh, and maybe it needs to go to staff or maybe Al, but I know the city is subject to audit. In our practice already. Would we as a corporation fall under that same audit requirement, or would we have to act separately to do this type of an audit? Or would that be piled into the city's audit process already?
Right now, because you don't have, and I will defer for a more technical answer, but the way I see it, right now, we haven't had revenue to audit, we've had nothing to audit. And going forward, until we start collecting fees of some sort, then again, there'll be nothing to audit. As of right now, we're falling under the city, using the city's budget, the city's everything. So because of that, we fall under the city's audit. Is that correct?
That is correct. But if there's another transaction that comes before you, obviously funds will flow through. And at that stage, what we're trying to do, we would have to build in some type of audit requirement. But again, as of the last, up until what actually currently, as Vice Chairman stated, you have no fiscal activity through the IDB.
Are you going to say something?
This one,
Yeah.
this IDB does exactly right.
Once there's a transaction that is under the umbrella, though, we would act autonomously as a board in seeking an audit.
We'd have an audit requirement there.
You have audit.
That's why
We're gonna have
it spells
audit
out
requirement.
records retention, requirements, all that.
That's why I move like.
That's why it's in there.
That's exactly right.
Which is why you want to make, it's okay, it's why you want to make sure that if you are asked to help out with any transactions, that there's enough, that there's some, that there's an ability to pay for this.
Any other questions or concerns?
Can you talk through, I guess it'd be page 1, under the scope, can you give a little more context to the, I guess this is kind of talking about liabilities of the board? Under scope.
Yes, sir. I'm
Yes, sir. Yeah, okay, I just want
Read
to.
the same one, so I go through it. Again, if the board, policy contemplates that the board has done a bond issuance.
Sure.
So at that level, especially if it's a tax exempt bond, where there's certain financial requirements or advantages, so to speak, to go through that aspect of things, that we're the issuer of the bonds in this stage, at that stage. So we would have to monitor and make sure that we're complying, make sure, again, whoever is the ultimate benefactor of the bonds is complying with those aspects of the transaction. Obviously, we can always say, by contract, they should do that, by written agreement, but to a certain extent, just because to cover our own liability, we would do a little bit more digging through to make sure they're actually utilizing those funds in the manner they're supposed to be going through. I'm sorry, this is.
I was going to say, so like an example would be when they initially financed the pyramid, it was for public good, so it was a tax exempt bond. And then somewhere in the middle, it became a private transaction between, with Bass Pro. So I guess somewhere in there, if it was still a tax exempt bond, they would have to determine that it's for the public good in order to keep it a tax exempt bond. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, but let's use a better example. Or let's use off the bar and we'll sort of drill back down. Obviously, some of these board members know we entered an agreement with Mission Agdal about tearing down 2 buildings. And that was a requirement to say, let's utilize it, that's a requirement federally that those buildings were torn down. Obviously, we signed a contract saying, hey, you're going to tear down these buildings by X date. But if they weren't torn down, you can't say, well, I never drove by Canada Road to see where the building was torn down. I'm just utilizing your due diligence to the standpoint of did he actually tear the buildings down by December 31st. So it's just monitoring. On the same standpoint, if it's a tax exempt bond transaction, and we're going to say it's for educational purposes, we would need to go through and say, okay, is it actually being utilized for an educational purpose? Are we actually, and again, this may not be the board itself, but a consultant for the board or an advisor by the board or someone else is actually going through to monitor how it's being utilized. And that's just not being monitored how it's being utilized on day one. That's monitored how it's being utilized in year 10, or through the life of the bond transaction. So again, just by saying, I think you want to go a little bit above and beyond saying we've agreed to it by contract, as opposed to we've actually had someone do their diligence to realize what's happening there, from that standpoint.
Okay.
And again, as you sort of read through that section of scope, we tasked the president of the IDB with a lot of those activities and responsibilities, so to speak. My suggestion to the board would be, again, depending on how the bond issuance flows through, if it's, sort of a construction type of standpoint, just a periodic, how we decide what that periodic look like, review, and then go to an annual review, after it's up and running. As well as there will be an audit requirement, which they use an annual audit requirement.
So I'm going to show my ignorance here, first day on the job, but Mr. Lasker is the chairman. Who is the president?
Thompson.
Any other questions? Concerns? All right. We're ready for the vote. Somebody make a motion? I'll make a motion.
Make a motion to vote on that.
Yeah. Are you making a motion to vote?
Yes, I'm okay.
Second.
All right. All in favor of accepting the compliance and remediation policies, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes unanimously. All right. Now, for announcements. You say hello there? Absolutely. Mr. Henry?
I'm just observing right now. I'll be serving on the IDB EDC starting in January. Just thought I'd take a seat at the table and get a bird's eye view.
We're more than happy to have you. Welcome to the
Thank you.
We're sad to see you go.
It's time.
And welcome to our other two members. Any other announcements, Tom, Jim? All right.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah. And a, sorry.
I was going to give you an opportunity to speak. Do you have anything to say?
No, I was just going to say, as you guys have seen the agenda for next week, I'm just going to encourage each of you all to take your opportunity for one-on-one. I know Al's reached out, and just take an opportunity to go through a page turn of whatever information is out there as it comes out there. Al is your lifeline, if you will, to make sure that you understand everything. And I want to encourage you to make sure you understand it to the nth degree. So do not feel like you're inconveniencing anyone. I know that we're all busy here, but I'm sure Al will make himself available.
We got a question, what is it, just anyone has any question about reached out personally to a couple people, and I have not done that for people, so I apologize. But just if you have any questions or comments about any parts of what's, if there's anything else, please do not have to contact me. I know we went live with documents this afternoon, so they are there, and again, we have a presentation for next week sort of to tell you how this will flow is also.
Will other information be disseminated to the board?
Yeah, all the documents and resolutions came out second.
Got the documents and resolutions, but I mean, financial numbers, projections, anything on that?
I know we planned to discuss, to talk through that. Let me see what I can provide with respect to the finance aspect of it. They're not even just I know you're procurement, so.
Yeah, that was good.
Thank you.
I'd like to second
Motion for adjournment, please.
All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.